Hey guys, I was inspired to make another video after watching the atheist YouTuber Nonstampcollector give his thoughts on morality and God. I'll put a link to his video down below. Now, like many other people before him, he argues that the Christian God is inconsistent with his understanding of morality, and that even if objective morality requires a deity to be its foundation, that deity cannot be the Christian God. So I'm going to be making 3 points in response. First, I'm going to be giving a counter-argument that shows why the Christian God is not inconsistent with the standard of morality, at least not for the reasons he suggests. And secondly, I'm going to be giving a positive reason to think that the Christian God could be the standard of morality. And lastly, I'm going to be taking some time to address some of the arguments that seem at least somewhat unique to Nonstampcollector that I also believe are misguided. First, I'm going to be talking about what in other areas may be called the epistemic problem. Now, for those of you who watch my videos regularly, you may notice that term looks very similar to the term epistemology, which we learned meant the study of knowledge. So you may be able to figure out that the epistemic problem means something similar to the problem of knowing. When it comes to morality, most people would argue that consequences are at least one of the things that are important in making moral decisions. But humans are really bad at knowing the consequences of our actions, or at least knowing all the consequences of our actions. In thought experiments about moral dilemmas, we usually assume that we're omniscient, that we know all the variables and all the effects our actions are going to have, but in reality, that's just not the case. If we didn't have an epistemic problem, then our moral understanding would be very different. As humans, we can't effectively factor in all the relevant variables, such as what impact our actions are going to have on any type of afterlife, or even how our actions are going to impact the extremely distant future. This is maybe especially obvious if you're familiar with chaos theory. But due to our own ignorance, we can't factor in all the relevant variables, so we just do the best we can. Without an epistemic problem, our moral conclusions would look foreign to those with an epistemic problem. And if we were omniscient, we wouldn't have an epistemic problem. So if someone is to argue that an omniscient deity is immoral because he has commands or moral conclusions which seem foreign to him, then it seems to me that he can refute his own argument and explain this apparent difference just by answering the question, would an omniscient deity have an epistemic problem? So now to give an argument that the Christian God could be the standard of morality. We're explicitly told that the Christian God doesn't want anyone to perish, but it wants everyone to be saved. So the Christian God is argued to be an omniscient deity who clearly intends to maximize the good, and he's factoring in variables like the afterlife and the distant future. Now, we're simply not in a position to verify or refute that idea unless we don't have an epistemic problem. So unless he specifically states that his intention is not to bring about the greater good, then all of our arguments would commit the fallacy of an argument from ignorance. So let's see what Nonstampcollector has to say.
If anyone did that now, it would be immoral. Objectively immoral. Well, objective or contextual? Don't you see that the instant you invoke context, your claim that there is an objective moral standard is destroyed?
No. If you want a more robust answer to that, check out this video I made a couple of years ago, sarcastically titled Absolute Objective Morality. I'll put that down in the more info section as well. But here's the short and simple answer. The word objective refers to things which are facts about reality. It refers to things which are not the product of a mind. And something which is contextual does not mean the product of a mind. Therefore, there is obviously no contradiction between contextual and objective. In fact, there are quite a few different theories about objective morality, and almost all of them factor in circumstances.
Because if killing people by throwing rocks at them is morally permissible in some contexts, then what on earth isn't? If deliberately sending wild animals to maul people to death is morally permissible in some context, then what on earth isn't? The most hideously cruel and sick acts, you are clearly telling us, can be morally good, depending on the context.
Yes, morality factors in circumstances. If you think about this for a second, I think you'll already recognize this fact. Imagine for a minute you're in a moral scenario where all I tell you is the action that occurred, just like you gave in your examples. Let's say one man killed another. Did he do something immoral? Well, we don't know, because I didn't give you enough information. Your answer may be different if I said he killed for entertainment than if I said he killed in self-defense. Clearly asking, is killing in self-defense wrong, is a different moral question than saying, is killing for entertainment wrong? And all I did there was change the intention. If you change the circumstance, then you may be changing the action or the intention. And if you change either of those, then you're asking an entirely new moral question. So is it really any surprise that asking different moral questions may yield different answers?
The particular God that you've suggested I accept as the objective moral lawgiver turns out not to be worthy of the name, due to the amazing volume of exceptions and excuses that are necessary to justify that view.
The reason you think there are exceptions is because of the black and white thinking you're trying to use when we talk about morality. If you use a really vague moral principle, like saying killing is wrong, then you're treating a host of moral questions as if they should all have the same answers. And of course, they probably won't all have the same answer, and then you'll have to deal with exceptions to your vague moral principle. Now, if you want to eliminate those exceptions, just get specific. Specify a single action and single intention, and then you only have to deal with one moral question at a time. For example, you could say, killing non-consenting people solely for entertainment is wrong. Now, if you show God did that, well, then you might actually have an argument.
Because your understanding of morality implies that if God did it, it would simply be moral. Nothing is absolutely, objectively immoral because morality under this model is subject to the opinion of God at that time. It's all circumstantial. Why do we allow this to have a seat at the discussion? Surely the ongoing human debate about morality and ethics and human behavior would be greatly enhanced if this Bronze Age was taken out of the equation.
If morality that factors in circumstances doesn't have a place at the table, then that would be a very lonely table. Now, prior to that angry little rant, you seemed to have a fair grasp of the moral argument, and then you reverted to saying things like, if God did it, it would simply be moral, and morality is subject to the opinion of God, which you and I both know isn't the view of the people you're critiquing. Now, if you're really concerned about the human debate about morality being enhanced, then I wouldn't recommend telling your 20,000 plus viewers that invoking context destroys the notion of objective morality, or that your opponents actually think morality is subject to the opinion of God. If you want this video to be seen or critiqued by more people, then be sure to leave a rating. And as always, test everything, hold on to the good.